complement it. We really don't repeat any sort of, was that a hand up? Are we having any problems? We good? We don't really repeat too much. The only thing I can think of on here is the Golden Pavilion that I'll talk about in Kyoto. That's on both itineraries, but pretty much everything else is unique. So they do complement each other and stand alone. And they are a little bit different. One is a bit more, I'll call it factual. And this one is, I think, a little bit more fun. Here's how we move around the country, just so as you know. We start in Tokyo, your big star down here on the bay. We spend 3 nights there, heading off to Mount Haguro for a night and Matsushima for a night, during which our luggage will do the short trip from Tokyo to Nagano. So after we do this little trip up here with an overnight bag, we will meet up with our luggage / laundry and get that taken care of. 3 nights there, moving on to Kanazawa with our overnight bags for 2 nights on the coast, and then wrapping things up with 3 nights down here in Kyoto. Again, reuniting with our big suitcases. So once we get to packing, you'll understand how important that is. Highlights on this tour. This is, it's always so hard to nail down, but in my experience, one of my best moments was in a rooftop onsen in Matsushima. The onsen culture is widespread across Japan, being volcanic with lots of underground thermal springs. There are communal onsens all over the place. You can even pop in after a day of skiing to soak weary legs, knees, whole bodies if you wish, and bring eggs, boil eggs in the onsen with you in small communities and rural spaces. We are going to be in more spa-like spaces with onsens. And in this case, this is one. This Matsushima resort is absolutely beautiful. The rooftop onsen, and I had a full moon looking out over the bay. So that was a moment for me. As far as your planning goes, the colors everywhere in the fall are spectacular, but the cherry blossoms in the spring, it really comes down to that. There's not a lot of difference in the way the tour runs. Which colors do you like? Our Maiko dinner on the final night in Kyoto. If you aren't familiar with the term Maiko, that is a geisha in training. They're actually called a geiko in the Kyoto area. We'll get into that in a little bit. And of course, the biggest highlight on this one for many can also be the food. Can be a little bit challenging for some, but from the experience of using the convenience stores in Japan, which are everywhere, to learning the culture of Kit Kats, and then the very fancy kaiseki ryori, one of the ways that we have dinner a few times in Japan. It really is a fun experience. Now, this tour is rated a level 2 on the website. So activity levels and concerns. I think a 2 is a very fair rating for it. There's not a lot of arduous moments on it, but there are times where I'm gonna be hustling through a train station or running behind you like a little Australian sheepdog nipping at your heels through a train station. Just get on the train because I know it's going to leave. Generally, we're able to make plans so that we don't have to do that. But every once in a while, things change, things go awry, and we're hustling. And so it's really important you can move quickly with your things. Hopefully we won't have them that day, but you never know. And then when we're on board, there's quite a culture in Japan on the trains that we try to honor as well. And it involves a lot of quietness, calmness, stillness. And so when we're bustling on as a group, with all of our bags, it's really difficult. But as I say, teamwork makes the dream work. We just find the few guys that are nice and tall, we get them the bags, they go up. We just, working together, we can make it work, and that's part of the deal. Your knees, I do find knees get a bit of a challenge. There's a lot of stairs. Mount Haguro, our first stop when we leave Tokyo, that is about 2,200 stairs down. Shallow, beautiful, but I did have one person get very challenged by the bottom of the hill on one of my tours. So now I'm a little bit more respectful when I describe that walk. Yamadera Temple, that stairs up and down. But when we finish those, we're at the spa, so that's good. Matsushima Castle has some slippery and dangerous stairs. And I don't want to put fear in you, but Fushimi Inari is another one with a lot of stairs at the very end of our tour. So that's one of your big challenges because knees are also important at dinner. Many times we sit on the floor. There'll be a hole in the floor for your feet to go down, so you don't have to do cross-legged or anything too difficult. However, you got to get up and down to get in and out and go to the bathroom and all that fun stuff. So there are a few challenges there. A couple of days we put in a lot of steps. Nagano, when we visit the snow monkeys, that's a day where we get a lot in as well. Arriving in Japan. This is pretty easy. Visa on arrival is good for 90 days. They just stamp you pretty easy breezy with loads of staff to help move you through. Post-COVID, we're going to see if it's a little bit more involved. I do not doubt it will be as efficient, though. Our transfer, if you book that or if you buy the airfare through Adventures Abroad, will be included to have somebody meet you at the airport, and they will line you up with the airporter's shuttle, making sure you know exactly what's going to go on and covering all your costs, of course. So that will take a minimum of 90 minutes for it to leave Narita and get into the downtown, to where most of the hotels are that they service. And so it can be up to 2.5 hours, possibly, depending on how the hotels go. It's never really more than 2, but I just say that in case. The Skyliner train runs from Narita Airport. It's really easy, about $28 Canadian. It takes you right into the center at Ueno Station. So if you are comfortable with a foreign metro, Japan's pretty logical, just takes a bit to figure it out. Our usual hotel in the heart of Tokyo is one train line from there, or sorry, one train ride from there. You can do it either on the red or the yellow line. And that's a tiny bit trickier, but really it's all relatively easy just because of the logic of things going on there. Also, you can be a little bit connected and ahead of the game when you land. There are booths that will help sell SIM cards to you if you wanted to be able to be connected while you're on the road. I do recommend them over trying to save money and going through the vending machines. There's lots there because it is Japan. I found it very tricky in making sure that the SIM card would match with my phone. I thought I had all the details correct. It was a $75 mistake. So just go talk to a human, get your SIM card. You can also play around with Hyperdia. It's a great app for planning train trips in Japan. If you're going to do a post or a pre-day, that might be a great thing to think about. Suica cards, those are new. They're a little thing like this, and they're like the Oyster cards in London or the Octopus card in Hong Kong. We will have preloaded them with the value of money that you need to get around our Tokyo subway trips that are planned. You can always top them up, and then you can use them at machines and shops and lots of different places. It's really convenient, and it makes our going through the metro a lot faster than having to buy tickets and going through specific machines. So I find this a great upgrade. Japan Times, the newspaper, has a Fast 5. Monday through Friday, you get a daily email with the 5 big stories in the country that day and links to them if you'd like to follow through. They also have a really good podcast, so that's something to kind of get you keen on before you go. Guides in Japan, because as you know, tour leaders can only do so much. We have some experts that help us on the ground. The lady that you're looking at in the photograph is Miho. She's not somebody you would meet, but she's the person that I connect with to help organize things. She is our agent, and she hires our guides for us. Japan has a real gift-giving culture, so we always try to have little gifts that we give to each other when we meet up and do tours or at the end of tours along the way. My sister is a little homesteader up here in a small town in the Kootenays where I'm staying right now. And she made pickles. So I brought them for Miho as a gift because pickles are big in Japanese food, but these would be very different. And then now I have extra space and weight in my suitcase, which I love because then I got room for the end of the tour to do some shopping. The local guide will start with us in Tokyo and generally travel all the way to Kanazawa with us. And then because of the size and speciality of Kyoto, we'll have our own guide for that area for the last 3 days. They're always amazing, so helpful, so full of information. The local guide also hands me a bunch of these. There's some maps. We have Japan, we have Tokyo, and then the Kyoto Nara area. So these are really fun. I mark them up for you if you like. I can leave them blank if you like to do it yourself. But those are always nice to know that they are coming. Yes, sorry, finish that slide. Next. Money issues in Japan. We have current rates roughly at a US dollar equaling about 109 yen and a dollar Canadian about 88 yen. So I kind of go in the middle that 100 is a buck, and then each nationality can do their own math on that. For reference, a beer in the 7-Eleven about $1.50 to $2. Vending machines maybe $3.50 depending on the hotel. $6 to $7 for draft at dinner. Depending on the fanciness of the restaurant, sake and stuff can be a little bit more. And a trip on the Tokyo Metro, roughly $250 if you're sort of staying in a core area. Same trip to do that in a taxi would be about $2,500 if you wanted to come home at the end of the night in a cab. Pardon me. Their big bills are a little bit larger than both Canadian and US dollars, so I find they stick out just a little bit in your wallet. And what's funny is there's, again, a little culture around money. Their money is pristine. And so you don't want to be the one who's folding it up in fourths and stuff like that. If you have a great billfold and it fits in your bags, it would be wonderful, because you're also going to carry your Japan Rail Pass with you a lot. And I'd say it's about, the size of a notepad. Or one of the maps, and we have to pull those out in and out of train stations. So thinking about a bag for something like that is a good idea too. I'm going to put that back in the packing page. The handling of money is done in a very low-key fashion. If I'm tipping, it's always in an envelope and very quietly handed to somebody. When you pay in public, there's a money tray. Even at the 7-Eleven, you put your money in the tray. The worker takes the tray, does their thing, puts the tray back for you, and you take your money. And money rarely goes hand to hand in Japan. And we'll go over a bunch of those in the early stages of the tour. Here's some pretty pictures of the money that we deal with, and a heads up that you would like an ability to carry coins. We do get a lot of coins, and they can pile up to be a lot of money, right? That's a $5 coin in there that you see, the 500. So yeah, ladies are rarely challenged by that. Men always have a big old pocket that they get a little frustrated by. Shoe removal happens every day, all of the time. So when you are packing, you need to consider what kind of footwear. Yes, you want sturdy stuff to walk in and do all of those things, but even going to dinner or within museums or within restaurants at lunch, you will probably take your shoes off 3 or 4, maybe 5 times a day. It's possible. Of note, wool socks are dangerous on the ladder stairs in Matsumoto Castle. A pair of us learned that the hard way once. And many sites have old wooden floors that you'll be asked to walk without your shoes on. So if you wear flip-flops, there's a few mornings where I'll mention it. So if you have little sockies, or you want to nick a pair of the slippers from one of the hotels and take those with you in your bag, your day bag kind of idea, it can get very cold walking on those if you're in your bare feet. The smaller the suitcase, the happier everyone is. As I mentioned, it's a challenge getting into the trains with all of our bags. We don't have to do it much, but we do have to be respectful. And a great overnight bag is imperative. It helps you. We do 2 trips with 2 nights, so being able to move with everything you need in one hand is great. Tattoos in the onsens. As I mentioned, the Japanese culture, it really is big and pervasive, and there are lots of rules for being in the onsen. We'll teach you about going in the baths. However, one thing to know ahead of time is they definitely frown on tattoos. Tattoos are very closely linked with the Yakuza, or the mafia in Japan. It's starting to change, but it's a very slow change, and there are some places that will have signs up forbidding you to come in with tattoos. So sports tape, large bandages, anything you have to bring with you that could cover something like that, even a buff, why not? Have it with you, and then you can go experience them, because they really are lovely. Free time. There are a couple days built into this tour. You'll have one afternoon/evening in Tokyo. We wrap it near the Tsukiji Fish Market in the afternoon after our sushi rolling class. The final day in Kyoto is a half day with intention to get you back to the center by lunchtime, so you'll be able to go out and have some adventures. We do offer to put together a trip to a kabuki-style show that people really have enjoyed. It happens in the springtime in Kyoto, so that's one thing to keep in mind as you're booking. And of course, they are both great cities for pre or post dates. I really recommend it if you are the type that would like to add a day or two to acclimatize. Kyoto, or you may be flying out of Osaka, so then maybe a couple extra days to see that as well. I know if I had the budget, I'd make them all so much bigger for us, but there we go. Transportation on the tour. You've heard us talk about the Japan Rail Pass. We will use that a lot. The metro in Tokyo and Kyoto, and streetcars in Kanazawa, local buses. It's fun to watch the way they work. And coaches on our longer trips, always nice and comfortable, and a lovely day with our guides. Taxis are a fun game we play in Kyoto. They can be a little bit stressful till we get the rhythm of it, because we kind of have to group into 4s, get into the taxi. All have made up envelopes that have our destination in kanji so the driver can read it. You'll get hotel cards anytime you're going to come and go. You always want to have it in Japanese script, because otherwise you can get right into a pickle and never get home. And I'll have enough money to cover the fare. So somebody takes care of that envelope. The driver will hand you back your receipt and your change. You pop it back in the envelope. When he is satisfied, I say he because there's very few lady taxi drivers in Japan, but that's a cool thing that's beginning. They'll unlock the doors. You can't get out until the driver opens the doors for you, to make sure on these tight roads that no bicyclists are going to get knocked over or doors get taken off from cars coming up behind, and to make sure everything is settled properly for everybody before anybody gets out. And then the rail pass moving us between cities. There is train etiquette to learn, from how to board, how to line up while we're waiting to board, dealing with the luggage, and even how you type on your laptop. Yes, there is signage aboard the bullet trains asking you to be mindful of not hammering on your keyboard. And for perspective, I stood at Nagoya Station once when a bullet train was not stopping. It went through at full speed. So this is 18 large rail cars ripping through you. It really is fun when you get to stand on the platform and watch that. One more time. Bye. Whoop, back it up. Food. The food on this tour, as I mentioned, one of my highlights. It's a very well-rounded sample of Japanese food, but it does tend to be on the fancier side for some of our dinners, which means a lot of sushi. Not always everybody's favorite, but I find some people learn very quickly who to sit next to. So you can broker the swap of the sushi for the noodles or things like that. As Chris Tripodi says, he's never eaten so much sashimi in his life. He just goes behind cleaning. I try to balance it nicely with izakaya or pub-style meals. And okonomiyaki is always a treat. It's a specialty that grew out of the post-Hiroshima blast. So there's a little bit of a story behind it, and that's always fun to share. It's a large cabbage. It's vegetarian unless you add meat on top, which lots of us do. There's lots of mayos and sauces that go with it, and it sits on the teppan, the barbecue in front of you, and you have a little tool and how to take pieces off. It's just really a fun, casual night. We have dinner. I usually plan that in Kanazawa, just so you know. We don't generally have trouble dealing with allergies or any dietary concerns in Japan. They're very on top of things. Say we had a serious shrimp allergy, anaphylactic kind of thing, I would get the guide to write things down in kanji for you, so you always have that to show in restaurants and things like that. Don't want any confusion. And if you simply cannot use chopsticks, I do recommend bringing a fork with you. They can be hard to source in different places, from a restaurant to a corner store or maybe a lunch stop. So consider bringing one if you are truly helpless with chopsticks. I totally understand that, not to worry. A little tour of some of the food pictures that I have in my library. The kaiseki ryori, the fancy dinner, upper left and upper right are two dishes from that. This would have been, I feel like I did that in the fall, I can't recall, but usually they have a seasonal theme because they're using the flowers and the herbs and the plants that are fresh in the forest at that season, or from the gardens at that season. And there's a theme, and it's a beautiful long meal where you don't even want to hurt the presentation. Down here in the right-hand corner, at least to me, is the breakfast or dinner. I can't recall. Oh, there's a beer there, so it must be dinner. At Mount Haguro at our Shinto shrine complex stay. That is a very authentic meal, and whenever I look at that tray, I wonder who loads the dishwasher. How do you do that with all of those beautiful pieces of ceramic art and everything so thought out and beautifully presented? That's really a lovely meal, and I look forward to saying itadakimasu to you when we sit down there. That is how you pronounce the word. It's basically their bon appetit or enjoy the meal. Now, I also mentioned Kit Kats. There's a bunch of flavors there. I'm hovering over wasabi. There's sake. Two of my favorites, Tokyo banana and Shinsu apple. Kita katsu is a phrase that translates from Japanese, and it wishes you success. So it's a very popular graduation a gift, or if you're moving or starting a new business. Kit Kats would be, they're very gifty, and they are all over the country, so they're fun to find the new flavors. And I included these because they were fun. I had someone on the tour allergic to shellfish, so the crab here, and a lady that did not eat beef or pork, so they were no good. And my ladies took those with them the rest of the tour, so they had them to show at restaurants, which I thought was fun. Now, the hotels in Japan, they're great, but as you may already know, especially in places like Tokyo and Kyoto, they can be pretty tiny. Toiletries are great in bathrooms, so for the overnight bag nights, you don't have to worry. You'll see a good array in Tokyo of what's available to you, from face cloths to toothbrushes to razors to shampoo, conditioner, all that stuff, and its quality, so that helps you pack. As I mentioned, many of the tours, backing up, many hotels on the tour do have coin laundry, and those are planned to meet up in the 3 nights where we have our bags, so that's always great. It's very busy in Nagano as we all meet up there, but we'll get her done. Many of them do have baths or onsens as well for us to enjoy. You don't have to pack a bathing suit for that. They are baths. And there is a full culture and array of that. Soap, shampoo, you could get away with not bringing any, really, if you wanted to on this tour. At Mount Haguro, the Shinto temple complex, which is almost a homestay. It's very authentic. Futon beds, some shared bathrooms, some have stairs. We do our best to make sure everybody has access to what they need. And as I mentioned, truly Japanese cuisine. I remember some Starbucks packets, they only serve tea at breakfast, and I know that's a deal breaker for some. In Matsushima, it is sheer heaven in that resort. The rooftop outdoor onsen that I mentioned overlooking the sea. It was a stunning dinner buffet. We'll see what happens going forward with buffets in the world. And it's a chance for you to do a spa treatment, massage, or all sorts of facial treatments. They love taking care of good skin in Japan. Here is a picture from my room in Matsushima, one of the few places where I'm standing at the foot of the bed and there's still a bathroom and space behind me, as well as the couch and sitting area in front of me. You know the old saying, you could swing a cat? That does not happen often in a Japanese hotel room, let alone that view. That is Matsushima Bay. Matsu, meaning pine, and Shima, Bay, like Hiroshima. Matsushima, the pine-clad islands of this bay are one of the reasons that we go there. And we'll talk about that just a little bit further on. So from here on, we'll run through the days of the tour. That was a little preamble to get you into some ideas of what's coming up. Here's a little bit of day by day, including day 1, your arrivals, where I will often book dinner at the hotel. We are able to get a little space where we can have orientation, a chat with each other, get a meet and greet per se. And I can also tell you some of the things that you need to know on the tour. I do find on this one, we have stragglers that don't make it quite in time for dinner with arrival time. Some tours just work out that way. So the next day, I will also try and meet up and do some orientation stuff with you because we split up. I steal all your passports in the morning and meet our agent down at one of the main rail stations, and we get our passes activated. I have to have your passports present for that. And then I spend the morning booking our preferred trains and getting seats on those trains. And you go off with our guide and explore Sensoji Temple and Kappabashi Dori, or the kitchen town, fabric town. We'll get you pretty close to Samurai Town, possibly a chance to see one of the rings, finishing up at the Edo Tokyo Museum. So a little bit of a history update at the very end to finish our day. It's a little bit quirky. It's at the other side of Tokyo. Kitchen Town, we'll see a picture. It's been fun to kind of curate this, and it just shows a little bit of a different side of that big city. Hopefully I have caught up with you in time. If not, we'll meet for dinner across the street, and those that are still battling time zones then are very close and you can hit the hay. Anybody that's up for it, we do stay in a very fun neighborhood, so you can go out and explore just a little bit. Here's some pictures from Kappabashi Dori, the kitchen town. Every restaurant in Japan, on their, they have menus out front for locals, but they understand many people don't read kanji, so there are always little samples of what's for sale in there or what's inside the box, or they're everywhere. They're everywhere, they're adorable, and you can buy some. You can take a million pictures of them on this walk, but Kitchen Town is really kind of fun. The next morning, day 3, we'll get up and we will meet our guide at what is left of the outer Tsukiji fish market. I'm sorry to say, I also missed the experience of the giant fish market that tourists would go at 4 in the morning because that's when all the action started. Apparently there were these little fish carts that the locals drove in there, and the biggest nightmare for tour leaders was making sure people didn't get run over by them. So there was the outer market, the inner market where all the auctions and everything happened. That's been moved further down, away from us, unfortunately. You can still walk through the outer market or a portion of it, so there's lots of color, snacks, really great things to take in, but don't overeat because we are on our way to our sushi rolling class. This one's kind of fun. It turns out to be your lunch when you're done. So there was my lunch. You can see it's really not hard to make perfect sushi. If you're the tour leader whose job is to try to help you during the class, I feel like I often hinder a little bit more than I help. But then I get to eat the teacher's tray. So she shows you that's what it's supposed to look like. And there's some great photos that you can take of her effort and your effort that, first try, come on, she's an expert. We finish our day there. I have in the past had the guide take those that are interested down to Ueno, to the museum district. And then I take people back to the hotel as they wish, or we make sure everybody knows how to get around, because you don't have to be back till the next morning. I'll have given you a list of some suggestions or helped you figure some out in advance, but that is your chance to rip around and have some fun. Here's a couple of really weird little options that are available. Like, it is a really odd country in its beauty like this. You can see on the right with these go-karts. These are younger people, backpackers. They tend to do this. You dress as Mario Kart characters from the Nintendo games, and you rip around the streets of Ginza. This is a beautiful district. The Louis Vuitton, there's a Burberry or a Gucci within a stone's throw of that. And these kids are ripping through on the go-karts, and it's absolutely adorable. And this, my co-leader, tour leader cohort, Sarah Hughes, and I discovered in Japan. It is called the Robot Restaurant, and this is 40 seconds of odd Japan. It is an epic battle between man and robot. There's a synopsis. If you're not following the plot, don't worry, neither do we. We called it the most Japan that we had ever Japan. It's very odd. It's $80 US. All the rock stars go. There's pictures of them going into the entrance on the front door. It's just one of the electric districts. Tokyo can be so incredibly different from neighborhood to neighborhood. And yeah, I really hope you do get to spend some time in the country, because it's amazing. Day 4. We take the bullet train to Yamagata and Mount Haguro for our Shinto temple complex day. This is our first train day. I'm always very nervous trying to herd you through the rail station, but we will get there, and we will do it without our suitcases, which makes life a little bit easier. You do pack for the 2 nights, and keep in mind that both are resort stays. So you will 100% be encouraged to dress in the yukata that comes at the hotel room. It's basically a dressed down kimono, a dressed up house coat that you are encouraged to wear around in the spa areas, even to the fancy buffet dinner. Everybody does it, and it's lovely because then you don't have to pack so much. The train is to Yamagata, and then we coach a little bit further onto there to the Mount Haguro area. We're getting into the mountains, and it can be really, really beautiful. We will drive to the top of one of the mountains to visit the temple atop, the Sanjin Gosaiden. It is famous for a thatched roof that I'll show you in just a little bit, and the pilgrimage walk. Now, it's about 2,200 stairs, as I mentioned. Many people do it coming up as a bit of a meditation, prostration, however you want to look at it. I like going down better. So we do offer that as the option. If you would like to take the bus down the hill, that is also a knee saver, but it's a beautiful descent through the forest with 100-year-old cedars, hundreds of years old cedars around you. The heart is soothed, but as I say, the knees may be a little bit slow to forgive. There is a small bath for each of the bathrooms in this Shikubo temple, the accommodation that we stay at. So you can soak away the day a little bit. It's challenging tonight. There's little to no English at the hotel. Even your room keys have kanji characters instead of numbers on them. So you kind of have to figure your way out at the start. But once again, everyone can wear yukatas to dinner, and that's a really fun group photo. There is the thatched roof that is famed atop the temple that we will stop and visit, learning a little bit about the Shinto religion. And that is the walk down through the pines. There's some beautiful shrines and places at the bottom as well. Very photogenic, but as I mentioned, walking sticks. Didn't mention them yet, but there we go. Now that we talked about those earlier from Baku, walking sticks could be very, very helpful. Day 5, we will be at Yamadera Temple, and then finish up some of our stuff at Matsushima, because we've got to get over to there. An early morning Shinto prayer ceremony is on offer for those that would like to take part in the morning. And then our authentic and very elegant breakfast again, the heads up for no coffee for those that it's important to. We will drive towards the east coast, stopping in the center of the top of the island at Yamadera. There is another chance to climb stairs. It is a beautiful path up to a temple. So we're going both directions up and down today. Lots of little dedicated shrines along the way with little stories to stop, catch our breath, and admire. And we'll learn a bit about haiku. The writer Basho is from the area, and he's honored along the way. And over the next few days, if we have Katsumi-san as our guide, I know you will be challenged to write a haiku or two for us. Lunch happens in the little tourist town right there at the bottom of the mountain, and then we head on to our fancy ryokan stay in Matsushima. We arrive a bit tuckered thanks to the walk. Your evening program is extremely casual because the resort lets us just do dinner at leisure. So you can go slow, go to the onsen early or late or both, or do a spa, whatever you like. Tomorrow, we're back on tour. Here's a little example of the walk that we do along the mountain. This is the one in the middle, walking up to Basho Temple. And on the right-hand side of the view from the rooftop onsen in Matsushima, you can imagine how dreamy it was. That is not my photo, though. That one's far more professional than mine. Day 6, we will leave Matsushima, sadly, and go on to Nagano, but not before we see one of the 3 views of Japan. A couple hundred years ago, these were named as the quintessential views in Japan. And after a couple more soaks in the onsen, our lovely breakfast at the hotel, we will head into Matsushima town to join a tourist boat where we go through the pine-clad islands, that famous game that they like to play in Asia, where it's Rooster Island. So you kind of have to turn your head and close one eye, and then you can see how it's a rooster. It's really fun. They're beautiful pine trees. They can be dotted on the hillsides with the autumn colors and the spring flowers as well. Here's a picture of the 3 views. Up here in the left, the Matsushima Bay, as I mentioned, with the cherry blossoms. If you've done JP1 or 2 or visited Miyajima just outside of Hiroshima, this is the another view, the torii gates, the orange torii gate here. And then these sandbars are Amano Sho Hadate outside of Kyoto. And that is the one I still have to tick off on my box, but hopefully I will get to see all of the 3 views of Japan. We cruise to the pine-clad islands, visit the Ziganji Zen temple before we leave. This is not only a beautiful temple and a fun place to visit, however, it's also a couple hundred meters from the ocean and was harmed drastically by the tsunami that you remember, the Fukushima tsunami. And so to understand the relative distance that the water traveled, the amount of water that traveled, it's a humbling morning. It's beautiful, but that moment of reality of the amount of force that nature brought in that day is really humbling. We have some time to meditate on that as we head back to the large center of Sendai, and I will senda you off for your lunch. Just made that one up. Not sure I'll ever use it again. At the train station, that's always kind of a fun challenge. And then we'll take our ride to Nagano, where we reunite with our suitcases and everybody rushes down to the laundry room, dinner on the town, and then we are good to go in that area of the country. We will start by visiting the monkey park and the city of Obuse. We have a drive in the morning taking us about an hour or so outside of the city into the mountains. So it depends if it's spring or fall. The trees in the parking lot are absolutely on fire, orange and red, and just so beautiful. We walk through the forest about a kilometer or more into the hot springs that the monkeys tend to hang out with. And then I tend to find it's a little bit of game on. There's a guy there with a stick, and his job is to keep you safe. Monkeys are the jerks of nature, I find. They're adorable. I love watching them. But some of the big guys, don't look them in the eye. They will challenge you, and you have to kind of calmly turn and look away and make sure they know you're not a threat, and then they just go along. The little ones come running really close to you, and it's absolutely adorable. Here's a little chance to watch some of what we do when that happens. From playtime to grooming time. We're generally there in the season where they're not in the water because it's not really cold enough. They don't need it. Sometimes we see it, but they're mostly just running and playing, doing adorable monkey things. And then, yeah, being jerks. Okay, day 8, Matsumoto Castle, and we'll visit a wasabi farm. You'll learn a little bit more about that. We drive to the town of, oh wait, sorry, I can't back through that. I didn't finish up. Obuse, and I know that because I have this in my hand. After we finish with the monkeys, we will head down into the town of Obuse and visit the Hokusai Museum. Hokusai is a famous painter in Japan for his 36 views of Mount Fuji. One of them is this one entitled The Wave. See Mount Fuji down there in the corner. He's in all of those. They're in all of those. But this is the most famous. This is the most reproduced piece of art ever to come out of Japan, The Wave. And we will see that in Obuse, learn a bit about him. The area is famous for chestnuts, so I will also encourage you to try the chestnut ice cream. All right, skip over the monkeys this time and get to day 8. Matsumoto Castle and our wasabi farm stop. We do visit the town of Matsumoto, which has, as I mentioned, a castle. It is pretty spectacular. Large grounds to wander. This is the day where I ask you not to wear wool socks because it's slippery. We have to line up because they do very much moderate the flow of people going through because it's narrow, steep staircases, almost like ladders, and you have an extra bag because you're carrying your shoes with you. It's a lot, but it is very worth it. It is an amazing castle. You'll be free for lunch in town. I will encourage you, however, to come with me to see the art of Yayoi Kusuma. Both Hokusai and Kusuma use their art to deal with mental illness. Yayoi uses dots in all of her art. And so she creates these beautiful pieces that are not for everybody. It used to be in our itinerary, and I guess the reviews were a little bit meh on it, so we took it out. I will, however, run over for lunch with somebody that wants to see it. Otherwise, you'll have some free time in the beautiful town of Matsumoto. Later on, we'll drive to the Dio Wasabi Farm. It is the largest in the world. We learn all about the plant. There are samples to taste in the gift shop, and one more reason to have some ice cream. Wasabi ice cream, why not? We'll return to Nagano in the afternoon, where I'll take you through the Zenkoji Temple. It's one of the more important in the area. It is very old, very holy. People make missions to it from all around the city. And there's a way to earn purity within the Zen tradition. There's a path underneath in complete and utter blackness that you walk. And you are meant to have your hands looking for a key on the side of the wall. So you're not walking with them in front of you. It's a trust practice, that kind of thing. If you want, I'll tell you where the key is so you can find it. But otherwise, you can go for it and see if you stumble upon it. And if that just sounds horrifying to do, you can watch the Sea of Humanity on the mall that leads away from it. Really great shopping, people watching, photo taking, tourists in their own town or in their own country. So that's always kind of interesting to watch too. There's your picture of Matsumoto Castle in reflection on the water. We had a windy day, so it wasn't perfection, but you know, that happens. Upper right is a picture of the wasabi farm. So you're not only learning about the plant and seeing it has to grow in flowing water. So that's why all this setup exists, but you can also see Japanese Alps in the back. Like the views each day are a little bit breathtaking. Japan is such a lovely country. And then an example of the art of Yayoi Kusuma there in the lower right-hand corner. If you do a little look at it, you might find it interesting enough to squeeze that in on the day too. Day 9, we move on to Kanazawa. Our bags are headed for their final stop in Kyoto, so we've got our overnight bags. We arrive with plenty of time to walk over to the hotel, which is generally in very close proximity to the train station, drop our things, freshen up, and then we'll go out for our trip on the local train circle that goes around. Sorry, it's like a streetcar bus. We'll stop at the Samurai District, have a little tour through there. We visit the most beautiful Japanese garden in the country. Well, okay, third most beautiful Japanese garden in the country. I can show you on this little picture. It has been underlined. This is outside the door before we go in. The Nomura residence that we will visit was rated number 3. And to note, down here at number 20 is where we will have our final Maiko dinner in Kyoto. So Japanese gardens. Unfortunately, the one in Kyoto, we don't really get to see because it's dark. We're there at night. Quick lunch, then we are off to the Botanical Gardens, Kenroku-en. It's a massive park, and one of the best things to play at there is watching all of the young Japanese girls, probably tourists from smaller towns that have come into the big city, and they put on traditional dress to pose for selfies. Sometimes you stumble upon a wedding. There's plants, of course. It's also another stop for ice cream. It's a lovely hour of casualness, just walking around, seeing what makes up a Japanese garden, or just watching the world go by. Then we'll visit the Chaya or tea house district, a glimpse of the past frozen in time, some old style tea houses that would have been frequented by businessmen and the geckos in the olden days. There's gold leaf producers in the area as well. So if we have time, we fit that in, depending on interest as well. And then we will head home for probably okonomiyaki dinner that night. That is another example of the garden, just to, in there I didn't point out, I like the little koi that float through there. It's a chance to sit down and just be totally zen, sitting watching all that. Day 10 is a coach ride day. We are going to head to Gokayama and Shirakawa villages. These are villages filled with traditional gasso houses, very tall roofs. Here's a little picture of one on the left-hand side from a fall tour, so you can see how the colors really do add to some of the photography. But these gasso houses are used now as museums, shops. Some of them are still homes. It's a really cute little village that we visit. And we will also make a stop outside one of them to do washi paper making. We'll be able to take away some little souvenirs from that one, but we learn how they use the mulberry bark to make paper in Japan. Last stop for our day, we sometimes have to rush back to visit the very Zen garden of the D.T. Suzuki Museum. Suzuki was a professor of Zen Buddhism who's left a very large imprint on people. A lot of people are aware of him and do go for that. Others are just happy in this beautifully architecturally perfect and Zen space. It's a nice little end to the day, and we will head out for our dinner. And if you are doing onward travel that night, I will have already coached you and broached you about it, because we stay so close to the JR rail office where we don't in Kyoto. So that final night, we will purchase, plan, pre-book, reserve anything you need for ongoing travel at the end of the tour. And then you've got that. It's not really convenient to do it in Kyoto. We've got a lot of sightseeing to do. And then we don't stay near a rail office where it's just physically easier to do it. So knock that out of the way. Just a chance to look again at the picture here on the right-hand side of the washi paper making. These are little postcards that the Lautenbergs are making there, and they're going to take away. Day 11, this is Kyoto and the Gion district, which is famous, what you imagine if you saw memoirs of a geisha. However, geisha is a bit of a foreign word within the Japanese culture, and especially within Kyoto. They are geckos, a practicing professional woman who works as an entertainer, and a Maiko, who are in training. So they have committed, generally a little bit younger, still learning, working, assisting, and will make a living from it eventually. We will have a Maiko join us at the end of the tour for dinner, so you'll see the dance and all the rest. But let's not get to that. This is our day exploring the zone. Rooms are generally not available when we get there. So we've taken our taxis to the hotel, dropped our stuff, and then we're generally very, very close to the Nishiki food market. So we knock that out as our first bit of touring. You can just grab a bite and rip through it on your own if you are brave enough. You don't have to be that brave in a Japanese market. It's just very crowded, busy, famous, fun. And you do a little bit better going on your own than in a group, because it can be really crowded, and only some of you are ever going to hear the guide or myself. If that seems horrible trying to negotiate it on your own, there's plenty of restaurants before we go in, so you'll be taken care of, absolutely, but we knock out a few hours there. Head over the river to the areas where all of the geisha area exists, where that culture remains within the streets. There are chances to spot a woman going in and out of the tea houses. It's difficult, but we have had it happen. We can show you how you look to see who's working that night, if they are open, which is a tea house. It's a little bit of an area that's frozen on time, and it was the scene for a couple of shots from memoirs of a geisha. They thought they shot it mostly on sound stages in California, but they did bring the crew over to do a shot there in Gion, down at Fushimi Inari, where we will visit, and then a couple more further afield that we couldn't get to, but those ones we could. We cover a lot of ground. Your feet are pretty tired. We don't get all the way home yet. I stop you in that Pantocho district, and we have dinner there on the river. Then when you're truly exhausted, I'll put you in a taxi and send you home. Or for those that are up for it, it's really a great neighborhood to stroll through in the nighttime on our way home too. Beautiful shopping district with sort of high-end designers and things. So lots of windows to look at. There is a picture on your left-hand side of the Nishiki food market, the yellow, green, and red roof there that runs all of the blocks along the way. There are corresponding blocks you have to go through. So some people still think they're in the market, but no, it's actual traffic. You have to be very heads up at the Nishiki food market. I will warn you. And then the perfect picture in the Gion district, I did put geishas in quotation marks here. Those are not actual geikos or maikos. I can tell that those are young girls who are visiting the area and have rented kimonos for the day to have fun taking photographs. And then you get to have fun taking photographs of them. So it's very symbiotic. It's nice. Day 12, this is a full day coach around getting to know the city of Kyoto. We will visit the Genkuan Temple. It's another example of a Zen experience. It is best seen in the morning away from the crowds. I have fought a guide on that once and learned very quickly, no, it's a really lovely start to the day because no matter what we do, we fight crowds at the Kinkaku or Kinkakuji or Golden Temple. Anyone is trying for the reflection on the water, and there's only a small crowded space to do that in. So this is what everybody is looking for, is the water reflection here. Go around the corner, have some fun with the tourists. It's just body to body to be able to get this photograph. And it can just ruin the Zen part of the morning. We take it and we roll with it, right? Head out for lunch, and then we have the Geshen Inn area to explore. We have a temple garden, a 600-year-old camellia tree to visit, and a matcha tea ceremony to round out our day. Very authentic matcha tea. It's not for everybody, but the experience of going through the process of the making, etc., really is kind of fun. Day 13, final day, and it is only a half day, so I'll let you fly on your own this afternoon. We will take a coach out to Fushimi Inari, the large orange torii gates. Let me show you a photograph of that. This exists up and down hills to celebrate Inari, the Shinto god of rice. So a little bit about the Shinto religion at the bottom, and I will let you run because it's a mountainside walk. You can go up and down as little or as much as you want, whether you want to deal with the crowds, whether you want to stay patient, try and get a photograph with nobody there. That will be all on your own. Then the coach will take us to the Fushimi Sake village. There's sort of an area where a lot of sake is made. We visit a sake museum, and I know it's a little early in the day, but what the heck, we do a little sampling too. Should get you back into the center for a late lunch, depending on traffic, and then you have the afternoon free, and you get ready and get back for our Maiko dinner. We'll get a couple dances from our dancer, maybe even some skill testing drinking games here on the right, some examples of the lady that visited us on our last dinner, a very authentic tatami room. It's just so beautiful, and she's in dress. She can't really speak with us. We do a little bit through the guides, but I will teach you a Japanese drinking game that's a little bit like patty cake. They are so good at it. I've never seen anybody beat them. I've seen it when I watch it on YouTube, but none of us have been able to do it. I don't know what that says about us. Maybe we'll practice a little harder next time. So that does bring us to the end and to departures. Many of you will fly from Osaka. The rest generally fly from Narita or Haneda, so we'll have made plans to get you to the big cities to move onward, or to how to use your rail pass to move you onto what other adventures or things you've added on. Kyoto Central Station has plenty of options to help you move about to anything you need. The bullet trains, regional connections, shuttles to Osaka, we can book those to come to the hotel door for you. It's really not difficult to get anywhere in Japan, and you will have had your guide and myself and your 2 weeks of experience. So it really shouldn't be too difficult for you. And I'll just be sad to see you go, and I'll be walking there with a big old pile of Kit Kats under my arm. That brings me to the last slide of my presentation. So I'm going to come back to hopefully be able to see everybody and say any questions, comments, or concerns. There's a little hand button. You'll see it in the center of the dots at the bottom of your screen. If you press that, it'll tell me that you have a question and I can ask you. Remind you that you'll need to turn your microphone back on in order to ask me any questions. And I don't see any hands, but I don't believe I covered everything off. I know I didn't cover everything off. There's got to be one or two. If your camera's on, you have a question, you can also just wave and I'll ask you. Ah, there we go.
Hi, Pam.
I can't find that button. This is probably, maybe it might be too basic a question, but my husband and I were looking at JP1 and JP6, so the Japan by rail and this one, kind of trying to decide between both. We haven't been to Japan before, so we're kind of wondering, I know you don't know us, but what maybe you might say would be the biggest difference between the two tours for a first timer?
I actually was kind of trying to nutshell that in my head yesterday, and just trying to come up with sort of snippets or images. I would say that the one and two, it's depending, it sounds like you have 2 weeks in mind as opposed to 3. The JP2 has 3 weeks. We had an extra. I would say the rail is more historical because you learn more. We visit Nagasaki, Hiroshima, the history of the clothes culture, the trading with Portugal, a few talks about the different dynasties, the Edo period, the Meiji period. And so when we come to the JP6, I dare say there's a little bit of an expectation, only a very small expectation, that some of that could be more familiar to you. So we visit things that don't always, like the Edo Tokyo Museum that we visit, that would definitely open up the conversation about that. And the first day, our guides would always give you rundowns and nutshells and things like that. But I would say the rail is a little bit more historical, and the experiential is a little bit more cultural.
Oh, great. Thank you.
No worries. No worries. We are looking at 1 and 2. That last week, going all the way to the end, is pretty interesting because you get down to the more volcanic area of the country, and it does change a little bit. You see a little bit more Japan than the big cities. So I would always say go for the 3 if you can, as opposed to the 2, but that's just me. Mi-young, did you have a question?
Yes, this is somewhat off, of course, but you're talking about food. There's a program that we've been watching under COVID called Midnight Diner and Tokyo Diner. I don't know, are you aware of it? It's on Netflix.
Yeah,
it's so much fun.
It is. It's great.
And I say, okay, Pam, you got to get me there.
That's it. It's a fun visit. When I first saw it, I thought it was something for me to be able to just sharpen my knowledge of food. It sounded in its description as more documentary style. And then I started watching it, and there's really colorful characters and interesting, it's just all about the visuals and learning about the culture. That is a great recommendation.
In addition to which, the food is not like what I would envision Japanese food to be like. It's
yeah, it does run the gamut, of course, right? What we see, especially what we see here, you do not get California rolls in Japan.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there's no cream cheese in sushi rolls in Japan. That can be shocking to some people.
Yeah.
I don't see any other hands, but I'm happy to chat. Oh, okay, hold on 2 seconds. I do see Susan waving. I'll come to you, Frederick, but Susan? Oh, Susan, your microphone is not on. I'm going to prompt you to turn your microphone on.
There we go. Thank you. I signed up and was to go on this trip last spring.
I was
2020. And so now I guess we're not going to be able to go now this year. So it'll be 2 years coming up if we do go. Do you see, now I've been with Chris. We spent 5 weeks together, Chris and I did, and I've fond memories of him, and we've corresponded. But how do you see, is this going to change when, and I'm sure you probably can't say, but when we're able to go, maybe in the spring, because of the closeness and the travel and all of that? What are your ideas on this?
My gut says that if anybody's gonna be able to handle going forward, Japan is one of them. The culture is already extremely open to taking care of other people. There's always a responsibility to others, a respect for others. So for them to put on masks in public spaces to protect other people is no big deal.
Okay.
Right? It's us that are like, oh, that hurts my feelings.
Yeah.
They got no problem.
Okay.
So I do worry now, like I think we're seeing fallout from Tokyo, the Olympics. I think we're going to see numbers run away a little bit.
Okay.
Not an expert, but I did think that because their waves are they're still waving like so many of us are. I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. You're right. I would not bet on being there for the springtime. I'd love to take the bet on September.
Oh dear. Okay.
But that again is just the race between vaccines and variants.
Right.
And
well, I'll keep signed up for this. Maybe in 2 or 3 more years, or hopefully next year sometime. Yeah.
Inshallah. Is
And God willing.
on that one.
Bukra inshallah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Frederick, you had a question.
Very much like Susan, because I read the numbers too. What's the strategy then? Is it now that there's so many people who have signed up that all the trips have these unfulfilled people that you can get on even if they opened up? Because I signed up for Antarctic as well, and not this next year, but the year after. But this next year was all full of people who hadn't gone, the years, et cetera, for a thing. And it's almost like, well, I have to sign up now, but it might not even be next year because it's all booked. It's whenever because it's booked and booked and booked, and there's only limited people.
Yeah.
I'm putting you on the spot, Pam, but
I hear that, and I think it's a reasonable concern. I would say that we're doing everything we could do to handle it, and it would depend on the tour. I definitely could not speak about Antarctica because I imagine that you don't have a lot of ability to roll and adapt on that one. But for a lot of the rest of them, all the tour leaders are getting very excited because what we see is double departures. We're starting to see, right? But demand is there. We've got the agents in place. They can grab extra rooms we could do. There's nothing more fun than having 2 tour leaders running tours side by side because we can meet up and trade stories and have support and all that sort of thing, or following them because then you get updates and we work together, and that will be amazing. I really believe there's a lot of tours where if the demand is there, we can double down and make it happen for you. But then again, it'll all depend on the tour and the country, and so lots of plans in place. If you haven't looked at it, we have a pretty good describer page on the adventures-abroad.com website that just at least gives you an idea how we plan on going forward and dealing with COVID and keeping everybody as safe as possible. And it might be some interesting reading going forward. Obviously, it's all still very ebb and flow, but I do believe there's chances for us to just double down and all of us to be super busy as soon as we can go. That's my dream anyway. Mi-young.
I imagine that you'd be requiring people to be totally vaccinated.
I believe that is already on the website as part of our protocol. I know it is for our tour leaders. And that's where you start to see the privilege we have in North America. A number of our leaders have no access to vaccines. If you've traveled with Peter Barathan, and he's in Johannesburg, and he's waiting. Andra in Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, he's waiting. There's a few of them without access, and it's really makes you realize how lucky we are.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
thank you.
No worries. Any other thoughts? You're welcome to jump in. If there aren't any more questions and people do want to run away, I will bid you adieu. Say have a look at the JP6 rail tour online. If you have any other questions that come up later, you've seen in the email, I hope, my first name and last name, pamshui@gmail.com. You could always drop me a line. I'm happy to try and answer your questions. But otherwise, see you somewhere on this big blue ball. I'm happy to hang here for any questions if someone just wanted something without everybody watching.